Good afternoon. Happy Sunday to everybody. You're all doing well. Got my friend, good man, Bobby Milone on here. We're going to talk about the finances of the Yankees, and we're going to go over some numbers. And, we're going to deal within reality. We're not going to deal within the Twitter sphere. So we're going to say stuff that people are not going to like to hear sometimes, but that's unfortunately what has to happen. But this is why I invite you folks to come here on a regular basis, right? We like to deal in facts and reality. So, Bobby, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
He always brings valuable insight, and I love breaking down the numbers with him because there's a lot of bad information that's unfortunately being spread out there right now. That's going back and forth to people, and it leads to a lot of frustration, and a lot of this frustration is based on bad information, unfortunately. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. So, give me your initial take, Bobby. What do you think about this Yankees offseason so far?
Yeah, I think everything started with Soto, and I think you have to, you got to give them the credit that they made every effort. He took, probably $40 or $50 million more by going to the Mets, but it was upfront money. It was all different kinds of package stuff that I think at that certain point, the Yankees, I don't know if they were frustrated, but you get the sense that they were frustrated, right? Like they don't want them. They threw as many bones as possible, and you figured go into a World Series run, you expected the player to say, give just a little bit back, right? And I'm not saying meet me halfway stuff, because when you're at $760 million, you're more than halfway, right? And when that took place and he went to the Mets, I think they moved quickly, but a lot better than in 2014 when Cano left. I mean, that year they just made some signings that I think they just had the money. We were going to spend it. We got McCann, we got Ellsbury, we got Beltran. I think the moves this year are more calculated, very much short-term moves, but picks up in areas of need, between getting Williams, Bellinger, Goldschmidt, and I think, and I was having discussion with somebody online the other night. I think they really wanted the kid that went to the Giants, Adames.
Adames, yeah.
Yes, I think they were really interested in him, and he signed, and then they parlay that with getting Max Fried, right? And I think they needed to do something. They had the $200 million. I think maybe that was set aside, but they haven't really picked up any really long-term contracts. I think they realize this, and I keep saying this, I think they're in a 2-year window, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have players like Jazz, and that could leave in 2 years, and of course you have Cole and Judge, who are in their mid-30 range, where you feel like in the next 2 years they're still performing at a very elite high level. Mm-hmm. So might as well just go and go all out and try to compete when the AL as a group is in a downward area. Seems like the money right now for players and for teams is in the NL. So I think Cashman is smart. I think there's still moves to make. I mean, I put out a tweet yesterday and I said, the question that I want to hear from Hal is this year's payroll. And you got to remember, this year's payroll is not going to be completed on January the 20th. You got to right. You're going to go to the deadline, but you expect that payroll to be as similar as it was last year, which is like 315, 320. I don't think it's going to be that much, but I do think it's going to be in the 300 to 310 range.
I would agree. And this is not to say the Yankees are done, because we could both agree. Yankees are not done yet. I call it rather incomplete, because they still need an infield bat. We can all agree on that. They're still looking for a left-handed reliever, right? I think they will get them, but there's still 3 weeks left until pitchers and catchers report. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important just to be patient and have perspective. But going back to what you said before about with Juan Soto, the Yankees offered him $760 million with a $60 million signing bonus. That's $400 million more than they gave Aaron Judge. Just to put it in perspective, $400 million more than they gave Aaron Judge. Okay, so they exceeded their highest threshold and then some. But he's represented by Scott Boras. They like to squeeze every dollar out of everybody they can. Can't fault them for that. They did their darndest to get him, but they pivoted extremely well. But those accusations, we were just talking about this before, like a lot of folks were frustrated that the Yankees brought in Soto, that they were going to do nothing beyond that. Well, go to Queens. That's kind of exactly what the Mets have done. They've done Soto and nothing of significance after that. Okay, and this is Steve Cohen, kind of probably learning from his lessons before. In his first year, it kind of felt mercenary-like. He brought in everybody. It didn't work. Then the Steve Cohen tax became implemented. He's not put a little bit of a little damper on his name. He's probably not happy about it. So looks like he wants to learn from his lessons and be a little bit more strategic in his spending. I can't fault him for that either. So, he's made Queens an attractive place to play for again. So,
yeah, if I think it would have been a frustrating winter if Soto was on, because I don't think you're seeing some of the pieces that they would bring along. Like, I don't think Bellinger's not be here. Max Fried is not going to be here. Williams, I don't know, maybe. Goldschmidt, I think, would have been here, right? But you're not going to. It would have been very, I would say, dull after the winter meetings, and you wouldn't got. Look what the Mets have been doing. They're Frankie Montas, and Clay Holmes. And this is not I'm not knocking the Mets fans or anything like that, right? But he's, when you have David Stern, who's a very good GM, right? He's doing what Cashman is doing. He's trying to build a roster with the budget. And this is coming with, this is your owner, a $16 billion man, right?
Yep.
And they're sticking to somewhat of a budget. Does that mean they're not going to go over it? I think the Mets, are around 300 as well. They're going to go over it, right? But they're not going to the Dodgers level. And that's the thing, right? Right now, there's only one level, and that's the Dodgers, and that's it. And I think, and I said that last night. I think you have 29 owners versus one. That's where we're at right now.
You kind of do. And again, that's not a knock on Hal, and as much as a lot of people like to compare him to George, it's a different game.
Yeah,
they're different. It's a different universe that they operate in, and we'll dive into that a little bit too. Man, George Steinbrenner, had a shipping business, right, with ships and so on and so forth. His business basically helped him finance the Yankees, enabled him to buy the Yankees at a bargain basement price of $30 million. Okay, the Yankees weren't necessarily his primary business. The Yankees are Hal's primary business, or is Hal's primary business.
Yeah.
This is their livelihood. So they're operating on a different stratosphere too. Additionally, George Steinbrenner never had to finance a new stadium independently. Hal is, right? So when we start to calculate profits and revenues and everything else, you're at 700 million, say, on the revenues, right? Which is good. Then you take away, let's just say the 360 or right off the bat for a payroll and penalties. Yeah. Then you're down to 340 now. Then you cut revenue sharing, then you're down to 200. So we've taken 500 million off that number in two moves. We haven't included anything else yet. So
it's funny that you're saying that, because I have it right in front of me. And a lot of this stuff, people say, well, this is, private information. Yeah, it's private information, but it's also information that if, many reporters through, Forbes, Business Insiders have, calculated. And somebody made a great point yesterday. Well, of course, there are so many different tax write-offs. So, of course, these numbers are probably escalated and there's more stuff. But it's not escalated to the point where it's double that, right? So if you're maybe $50 to $100 million off, that's fine. But it's not like, I remember, for my friends who've been following me for a long time, remember that I was adamant back in 18-19, going nuts about saying, the Yankees not spending and Hal and all this stuff, to the point where I got, messages from people in the Yankee organization and telling me, you are just running your mouth. And if you want to know what I could tell you, and because I remember A-Rod made a statement saying that they're making over $1 billion, right? And that's not That's not true. Put it that way. That's not necessarily true. They might, brag about it in closed circles, but there's no way they're doing that because there's documents that have to be given to ML baseball every year. So what people don't know, I don't think a lot of people know this, around December, late November, each major league team has to provide Major League Baseball their financials. Mm-hmm. And why they got to provide their financials is because they need to know they're in good, solid ground to sign potential free agents. So they got to present them an early payroll. So I'm assuming, like the Yankees would present them a payroll of, say, $300 million. And that is backed up by so-and-so, so-and-so. Major League Baseball signs off on there. I think that's why you're seeing teams like the A's providing their financials and having a payroll so low that they're telling them you need to spend, right? Them, the Marlins, I think they're maybe the Rockies. I'm not too sure. They're so low, it's embarrassing, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the Yankees, they could probably add to that payroll. And that's another thing somebody said, been saying, well, they made 60, 50, 60, $70 million in playoff game revenue. Well, in total revenue, baby. But that money is going, it's got to pay for other things. It's got to pay cop security. It's got to pay so what do they net from that? Maybe 40 million. And most likely that money went to pay for the CBT, which was around $68 million last year. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to be in there. Like you were throwing out some figures, and I have it over here. The total payroll with the tax was like $375 million last year.
That comes right off the top, guys. Right off the top. Revenues does not equal profits. You have to deduct all these things to get to the profits.
Right.
That's big chunk number one.
100. Now, here's a question that I was a hardhead over for many years, and that's revenue sharing. Mm-hmm. So if the Cincinnati Reds come to Yankee Stadium, they get a cut playing the Yankees. You might not realize that, but they get a cut. The Reds get a cut of the gate. It's not all the Yankees gate. It's the Reds get a cut. So, I would say an estimate of revenue sharing is probably around $100 million. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's money that's lost. And that's why you hear, Randy Levine complaining about all this money that the Yankees are giving back to baseball and teams pocketing it.
And that's one of the biggest frustrations, because there's nothing that mandates in the CBT, the CBA, that nothing mandates these teams to spend on their players to make their teams better. They can pocket it. This is why you see teams with these beautiful luxury suite boxes. You know why they're so beautiful? Because nobody's sitting in them. We can actually see what they look like.
Right.
This is one of the things that private jets, whatever it might be, and so on and so forth, they're not using the money to make their investing in their own product, where the Yankees are, the Dodgers are, the Mets are. And the teams that are investing are the ones that are being penalized more than the teams that are not investing. So, and that leads to a lot of frustration in baseball, especially a lot of frustration to folks like Bobby and I who understand this type of stuff, that to a level that's probably very annoying to a lot of folks. But
yeah, because I think a lot of people, like we say all the time, like when George would run, you got to remember when, somebody, the payroll back then towards revenue was around 70 to 80%. George was putting back in there. Mm-hmm. But George was not making money from the Yankees. He had the ship business. That was sold in the mid 90s. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too, George, if you want to go deeper, they've been the Steinbrenner family themselves have been a very conservative family, mm-hmm. in the sense that they've been a tight-knit group, not living an extravagant lifestyle, meaning that, you don't hear stories about them buying, that was George too. I don't want to say he was a modest millionaire, but, in the baseball circles, he was not at the top. I think when he left, when he retired, when he passed away, he left the family around, I think, $1.5 billion. Well, when you go on Forbes and you type in Hal Steinbrenner, it says 1.5 billion. Hal does not have 1.5. That money is split 4 ways. There's 4 children. I'm pretty sure Hal's net worth is probably close to $500 million, but it's not $1.5 billion. There's 4 children, and they all got a share. And that's after the mother passed away in, I think, 2017, 2018, George's wife, right? So they're not, they're, if you break it down, they're a lot like the Mara family. Like the Mara family's business is the New York Giants. That's it, right? And the Maras have been around for 100 years. And as much as, they want them to sell and stuff, that's their family business. So you could go into the high heaven saying, oh, the Yankees should sell, the Yankees should sell. There's a prestige owning the Yankees. Like they said, there's only one Mona Lisa, there's one of your Yankees. And, if we're living a very, very comfortable lifestyle and we own the number 1 franchise in the world or the number 2 franchise in the world, why should we sell?
Well, exactly.
Because people on Twitter don't like us? Come on.
No, exactly. And honestly, the Dodgers can do whatever they want, right? So can the Yankees. That doesn't mean they have to do what the Dodgers are doing. And again, the Dodgers' financial situation next decade is going to be different than it is this decade. So they're going for the gusto right now.
Yeah.
Now, before we talk dynasty, I think they have to win multiple championships for even to even entertain that conversation. So there's no guarantee. Like I brought this up the other day. I brought up a couple of the rotations because their rotation is obviously deep. But then I look at the Braves. They had 3 Hall of Famers in the one rotation.
Yeah.
Kevin Smoltz and Maddox in the same rotation. And you had Kevin Millwood, Avery, and all these guys. And these guys only won 1 title. Then you have the Phillies. Roy Halladay, Roy Oswalt, Cliff Lee, and Cole Hamels. 1 World Series. And the 1 World Series they won was without 2 of those guys. So a strong rotation's great, but it doesn't guarantee everything else. You need everything else to fire on all cylinders. You need guys to be healthy. Like last year, a lot of the Dodgers offensive players, they had career years. The chances of them repeating that this year and collectively is very difficult to achieve. So a lot of things have to go right for them, just like a lot of things have to go right for the Yankees.
No, but like you mentioned something that like I was thinking about too yesterday. It was like, everybody's going on the Dodgers. If you're an older fan like us, you remember Ted Turner.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, right, with the Braves. Getting Maddox and how he was the evil, let's quote unquote evil person. And I clearly remember how many big time stars, the 2 that popped in my mind that I remember, this is the early days of the internet when there used to be bulletin boards was, and that's how I used to communicate before Twitter, right? For our younger fans, used to have bulletin boards.
Yeah.
The 2 names that always, actually 3 names, was McGuire when he wanted to get traded and he went to St. Louis. Yankee fans went ballistic. They thought he would be a great DH because he still had Tino, but he didn't want to play for the Yankees. Like he had a no trade clause, I believe. Did not want to come to the Yankees at any point. The next person was Manny Ramirez, right? When he became a free agent, coming home back to the Bronx, and they did not want him. That was something like I said. And then the last one is the classic Vladimir Guerrero Sr., who had to deal with Cashman, but George insisted in Gary Sheffield.
He overruled Cashman.
Yep. So there's been stories where they haven't over the years that maybe our younger fans don't understand or don't remember, but there has been quote unquote that other evil franchise out there where the Yankees, evil empire was not really the evil empire. They were not the Mecca of baseball. There was a point where Atlanta was the Mecca of baseball, right? Yeah. There was when that they wanted to go to other places that when during those years. But if you look from, let's say, I'll tell you a quick story. The Braves win the World Series like the Dodgers do, right? In 95. Mm-hmm. You think they have a juggernaut, right? You have a juggernaut. And you probably remember this. After game 2 of the 96 World Series, their Yankees are losing 2-0. That juggernaut is on full steam. The Yankees are embarrassed. Mm-hmm. There is no more baseball. There's only one place in baseball. That's Atlanta, GA, right? And then we know what happens after that. So as you could go, you could lose sleep over the Dodgers tonight, right? History doesn't work that way. So let's understand that. And it's the same concept. It was the same money. Money is higher now than it was in 1995, but the money back in 1985 was crazy, right? So
it's true. And again, it's a different game too. The athletes are built differently now.
Yeah.
And it's a different attack, and it's just you're operating in different parameters. I mean, the Yankees, just to put it in perspective too, they haven't drafted in the top 10 of the draft in like 30 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely, more than 30 years, I would say.
1992 maybe, was it 92 when they drafted Jeter?
Yeah, that's the last time.
Drafted him 6. They've never been that high.
Yeah, 92 was the last time.
32 years. That means they're a pretty good team the last 32 years. That's just a good way to put it. I mean, they've been that competitive. They haven't had a losing season since that about 32 years also.
Right.
So, testament to their player development, their drafting, their the way that they run their business. It's sometimes I feel like they don't get enough credit. And I understand the frustrations that they're not competing with the Dodgers, but that they don't necessarily have to compete with them in the pocketbook. Do I think there's one more move that needs to be made a significance? Yes, but I think it needs to happen in the trade market.
I think that there's still, like you said, we still have time. I mean, I would be. I'm not going to say I would be shocked if DJ LeMahieu or Cabrera starts the year third base, but like I was telling you before, the fact they haven't made a move on like a Polanco or Brendan Rodgers is not because they have Strowman on the books. Okay, that's then Strowman is going to be traded. Every GM in baseball knows that, right? It's just a question of how much money the Yankees are eating. If they really wanted those two guys who are probably the two best of the free agent, the lower group, they would have gotten them.
Yeah, or Paul DeJong.
Yeah. Right. So that there's something probably, and Cashman, I've been writing this the past 2 weeks or so, is that he's, you go around baseball and you listen to, if you have an opportunity like myself who listens to a lot of MLB radio, they'll keep on saying that nobody reads the market better than Brian Cashman. Whether we hate him or people dislike him and whatever, let's throw all that out. Let's just look at the facts. The facts around the game that he's reading the market. And right now, there are a few teams that are handicapped spending money, right? And they got to do something. And he's got them where he wants them. Because one thing we were talking about before, after all of these signings they made this year, or trades they made, right? Cash has not traded any prospect of significance.
Nobody in the top 15 has he moved. Means he has all those guys in store so that if something presents itself, he can pounce, right? If Nolan Arenado somehow turns into Brendan Donovan, he's going to pounce. A lot of other teams are going to try to pounce, but this is why he's reading the market and waiting, because the Cardinals made a couple of strategic bad moves over the last couple of weeks, right? Failing to avoid arbitration with Brendan Donovan, also lowballing him, potentially ruining an extension that was talked about for maybe a day and nothing beyond that. So if Brendan Donovan becomes available, he's my number one pick, by the way. He's the guy that I've talked about.
I think they're, the Yankees, no doubt, they've been asking about him for like 2 years, right? So there's definitely an interest there. I don't know what the likelihood of the Cardinals doing that. I think more likely if they do get it. I think if there's going to be a bat acquired, I think it's going to be Arenado or from San Diego.
Luis Arias?
Yes, him, or even Willie Castro from the Twins, because all three teams need to cut payroll, right? Mm-hmm. So he could have, what we don't know is he could have three teams going, on three different lines, seeing who's going to present him the best. Like, people say, Aaron, listen, if you go back to my tweets back in December, I did not want to hear Nolan Arenado, right? that's not the person I wanted to get, right? There's not, because I knew that if they get Goldschmidt, they're going to probably get him. And it's, well, when they got Goldschmidt, and that stuff is significant. I think the two of them want to play together. There's a common friend in DJ LeMahieu, and they all seem to be close to Judge. When you put it out there, they think this is a joke and stuff, but you don't think these players talk? These players definitely talk. These players talk and stuff. And until I know Jack Curry said there's no shot in Arenado. Well, if the Cardinals want the Yankees to pick up $50 million, I don't think there is a shot. Who's going to do that? So you wait out the market, and if that number price drops to say like 330, that's 10 million, or you offload Strowman, then you become interested. And it's not just him. Like I said, Ariza, Castro. So I know Joel Sherman put out Christian Vasquez and Willie Castro. And I'm not. Let me just tell you this: I'm not the biggest Willie Castro guy in the world, but if they did get him, if you look at his leadoff ability and you look at the numbers, he can lead off. He's a switch hitter. He's got speed. He can play third base. Capable. Could I live with it? I guess it's better than other things.
And to your point too, the teams you mentioned, the Padres, the Marlins, and the Twins. Each of those teams,
Cardinals, yeah.
The Cardinals. Sorry. Each of those teams also has a left-handed reliever or a backup catcher that can go along with the piece.
Yeah.
Which is the other piece that the Yankees are looking at. They need. So, and Cashman's very good at multiplayer trades.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we're kind of dealing in his wheelhouse. He knows this. So, and like you said too, is nobody really reads the market better than him. He's waiting for one of these opportunities to present itself. And on his terms too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, what we have, I mean, like us as, maybe older fans, you would remember like the Novelock deal, if I remember, came the first week of February, right? A-Rod, right? The A-Rod deal, I remember, came on Valentine's. I was out with my future wife on a date, and she was like, "What the heck are you doing?" And I remember watching it at the bar, and I saw A-Rod and the Clemens deal. So there's still some time where. And what I mean by that, the significance of those three trades, it's kind of like paralleling to Arenado. You have a player. Arenado has a full no trade clause, right? He could have gone to the Astros. If you think about it, right? If you're, what we think about the Astros means nothing, right? The Astros are a good team. It's a good organization. They have multiple rings. How they got them, I don't care. They have them, right? You would think he would have gone to the Astros. Houston's a great city. Why wouldn't you go there? Because I think you have other things in mind. And like I said, until the Yankees get an infielder or he gets traded somewhere else, I kind of believe that that's the logical fit. Now, it could be the San Diego people. It could be Castro. There are teams willing to do it, willing to buy it. And the whole thing, Cash is not making a move until Strowman is gone. I mean, Strowman is going to be gone. They know it's going to be gone, and they probably know what kind of price range it's going to be gone. Whether they need $4 million, $6 million, yeah, it's going to be in that range, right?
Yeah. So, and if I could add something to your point too, and speaking of Nolan Arenado, I have a buddy who's been working with him in the cage, right? And this may not matter to a lot of people, but his bat speed is identical to Aaron Judge's right now. And this is of a week ago. Now, you got to actually throw live pitching in front of it. It's a different story. But his bat speed has not lost anything. So he does have some thump back in his bat. You put an elite glove at third base here, and you can put Jazz back to second. Where he's a defender. You have all the makings of a superior defensive infield.
That's going to be the narrative.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be the narrative is going to be, and hear me out too, because people don't want to maybe hear this too, but it's a fact. Nolan Arenado is a year older than Judge, right? Yep. And he's got like a 50, I believe 52, 53, 54 WAR. He's got 10 Gold Gloves, 8 All-Star. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Like whether we Don't think so. I mean, the numbers when he retires are going to, bring him to a Hall of Fame, especially if he gets a ring. And, if he's really close to Goldschmidt, yesterday or was it the day before, I was reading a lot of articles from the St. Louis side, and they're really tight. So, there was talk about maybe them going to the Astros. And I had to rekindle that. That was talk when that deal fell through, right? That didn't happen. I'm not saying he's the perfect fit. And you got to remember, too, that's the other thing that I don't know if Yankee fans realize is where is he probably hitting the lineup? 7th or 8th? Let's be honest here. Mm-hmm. He's not what you're expecting for is Gold Glove defense and a 2.5 WAR. Mm-hmm. You'll sign up for that right now. 15 to 20 home runs, 70 RBIs, maybe 750 OPS. You're fine with that.
And if you get that from the 7-8 spot, that 7-8-9 is going to be a hell of a lot better this year than it was last year.
Yeah.
You've given 1, 2, and 3 more of an opportunity to drive 7, 8, 9 in. It's more manufacturing.
And I think you just said it a few minutes ago. I think it's pretty much clear. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much clear that they're going with a defensive model this year. And they want it. They have now 3 Gold Glovers on their team. They have Volpe, Goldschmidt, and they have Bellinger. Judge should have been a Gold Glover. I mean, at right field, he's pretty close to a Gold Glover.
Yeah.
And if you get him, that could be up to 5 really good gloves. And Jazz has good range. And Austin Wells, let's be honest, is a lot better than any scout who wrote about him the past 3 years.
He's progressed nicely.
Yeah. So if you're going to go there, everybody's playing their position that they're supposed to be playing. So that's why I do think if he does make a deal, it's going to be for a third baseman and somebody who can play the position.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think it's going to be any one of these options is probably going to be more of a logical option than Alex Bregman. I know people are talking about Alex Bregman on a short-term deal and all that stuff, but I get there's a reason why Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso have been signed. If these guys weren't attached to QOs, both of them would have signed a month ago.
Yeah.
But they're at the QO, and I think is one of the more punitive things in baseball with free agency that needs to probably be addressed. And I don't know if it will be addressed in the next CBA, but I think the penalties attached to a QR are a little bit too significant.
I think the two things in the next CBA, really the 3 things. Well, one would be I tweeted about this last night. I think the first one is going to be how deferred money is going to be put in in how you calculate your tax. You can't, if the Dodgers had the money that they have in the deferments, their payroll CBT taxes well over 400. Well over 400.
They wouldn't have gotten all the guys they wouldn't have if Shohei Ohtani didn't defer $68 million a year.
Right. I think the next thing would be, when you're talking about the qualifying offers, instead of the team who signs them get penalized, is that, though they come up with a system where the top, say 10 free agents just get a pick attached to them, meaning that it's in the comp rounds, right? So that team, they lose that player, they get a pick, but it's not hurting the team that signs them. So I believe the NFL has that, right? Don't they have the end of the draft?
They do.
Right? They do, right? So it's for free agents, but it's not hurting the team that signs them. And I think the last thing is the tax numbers will be raised. I think that's obvious.
Yeah, and what baffles me is guys like Anthony Santander signed with the Blue Jays who haven't heard, 5-year deal, and Corbin Burns have netted their teams first-round picks, and Juan Soto's only netted the Yankees a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Juan Soto was the clear number 1 free agent, and he only got the Yankees a 4th-round pick. When you tie it to the threshold levels and all this type of stuff and the dropping in the draft, this is what happens. And this is where the Yankees, being a top spender every year, don't really enjoy the benefit of losing a top player like Juan Soto. It's unfortunate. So I think that's got to be maneuvered in the next CBA as well. I don't know if they will, but it should be.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying the next contract talks is going to be I don't think so. I mean, personally, and for the people I do trust and I talk to, I mean, we're at a point where it's 29 versus one team,
Pretty much.
and at that point, and none of this stuff really affects the players. The players want to have the ability to play and get their contract, and I think having the qualifying offer attached to them is hurting them. I think that's something that we could all work on. And the thing about the deferred money, like everybody said, well, anybody could defer the money, and I'm just going to bring this up, right? If you go in the baseball circus and just Google her name, Gene Afterman, right? Gene Afterman is the Yankees money, person. She's been part of the Yankees finance department, whatever you want to call it, for the past 30, 35 years. She's probably the number one person in baseball. Don't you think she would have suggested that deferred money to George or Hal or anybody over the years and the implications? You're adding debt. That's what you're doing. And now the Guggenheim Group, which has over $400 billion worth of assets, that's dropping a bucket. For somebody like the Yankees, that has to be paid. Here's what I don't understand is we, especially in this area, make fun of Bobby Bonilla Day, right? All right, and that's deferred money. Okay, and that's like $1 million. The Dodgers have $1.2 billion of Bobby Bonilla, like kind of day money that they still owe.
And that's player debt. Player debt.
Mm-hmm.
Just player debt. It's not financing stadium. It's not all these other things. It's just player debt.
Player debt. So if Gene Afterman is not suggesting these things, and like I said, go to Cott's website, and they have it listed over here where the Yankees are. In the past 30 years, the Yankees have had a top 3 payroll except for 1 year, and I remember that because I went nuts. It was 2018, and he went underneath the tax to reset, which and I say that as long as Hal is above the tax, and around where he was the previous year. What am I going to say? It's not my money, right? I think we're okay. I made this point yesterday, and this is and you may remember this in the early days of the tax structure. You used to be able to write off bad contracts.
Yep.
In terms of you were going to DFA contract that I think tweaked how much you owed in tax money. That no longer happens. I think they got rid of that maybe 15 years ago. Yeah. So on bad like right now, the Yankees have over $40 million in Hicks, DJ LeMahieu, Strowman. That's $40 million that they could have probably added in other years by just, not saying, they got rid of that money. Say they got rid of the money, but they spent the money. You know what I'm saying? That's what you used to do. So I got rid of the money, but I'm spending. So the players are happy because you're bringing new players. You can't do that anymore.
Yep.
So, the Dodgers don't seem to give a, care. Whatever. Okay.
And you have a large ownership group. So it's a different – right now it's a different stratosphere that they're operating on. But it guarantees them a World Series just as much as it guarantees the Yankees a World Series. You have to put the product on the field. The product has to deliver on the field. And
winning in December and January is not winning in October.
Yeah, as much as I get a lot of fans who say, let's just hand the Dodgers the World Series. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Not as a Yankee fan. There's no way. So, and they could be beat in the 7-game series by quite a few teams. Especially now you have a healthy Texas Rangers now. You have a healthy Atlanta Braves. Yeah. You guys were depleted last year. Now they're not. They're back. So, and they've got a stronger Mets. They've got a stronger Phillies. Like this, they're not going to have a cakewalk to get to the World Series.
No,
so, Diamondbacks are going to be better.
Yeah, the NL West, I think, is going to be pretty competitive, except for the Rockies.
Yeah.
But the NL right now, if you look at the NL, the Mets could be the third best team in the NL East.
Yeah.
Right? And you have 3 teams out west: Diamondbacks, Padres, and you have the Dodgers, and then you don't know what the Central is going to bring. The Brewers, I think, are still going to be good. I think the Cubs are going to be very competitive. I think the Cardinals are always competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So and do not. And here's the team. Terry Francona is managing the Reds. A lot of people forgot that. Terry's going to have those. He knows how to run a ship. Just put it that way. So yeah,
They made quite a few small under the radar moves, the Reds. So, if anybody can get these guys to perform well, it's Tito.
right. So I mean, it's going to be NL is definitely I think that the Yankees feel very confident where they are right now in the AL, and I still think there's more work to be done. I think getting a lefty reliever. I still think there's still some time between now and March the 25th to get stuff done. So give them time because the moves will be made.
Yeah, and keep in mind too with the Dodgers, Tanner Scott has to be added to the 40, which could leave one or two of these left-handed relievers expendable, and a couple of them have controllable years, which is something that Cashman likes to acquire, right? So you have a couple of these guys.
Yep.
Vesia, I forgot the other guy, Banda, one of those.
Yeah, Banda, yeah.
And both of them have like 2, 3, 4 controllable years on the relative cheap. So that's something that a small trade could happen, right? The Yankees trade well with the Dodgers. So, and like I said too, the Marlins are in a little bit of a pickle. They could have a grievance filed against them for not spending. Right. So we're an area where maybe Brian Cashman could feed them a contract or two to maybe get somebody like an Andrew Nardi back if possible. That's a guy that I would like to, lefty reliever.
Yeah.
Years. And you have John King you can add to a trade, hopefully, and it's with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Well, they liked him before. They liked him in the Gallo trade. I mean, that he was the name that got pulled at the last minute. So,
and he's more likely than Ryan Presley. So, and Helsley, I should say. And then from the Padres, there's a couple of lefty relievers over there too that could come with a run. So there's options for Brian Cashman to maneuver here with trades. And again, I do think it's the more financially probably sound or more financially realistic possibility for folks. And the fact of the matter is, I'd rather trade for Nolan Arenado or hopefully Brendan Donovan than sign, Pete Alonso or Alex Bregman.
Yeah, I know Kim's name has been brought up a lot too.
Yeah.
And I think if he was healthy, they would probably have looked into him a lot early. I mean, that's he's the type of player that gets off the board fast in a normal winter. And when he was not signed, let's say in December, you knew that there was probably issues with that. And being that he's a Boris guy, you're not really getting the full story. Like when Conforto a couple of years ago, everybody's like, why is he signed? Why is he signed? Well, he's got, serious, health issues. The word is that Kim is not going to be back until maybe May. But if you're like the Yankees, that's 30 games. Now, even if you get him at a less of a value, maybe you get him $8 or $9 million instead of 11 or 12. 30, 40 games of not having a player that you really need in the lineup. Mm-hmm. That could cost you down the road. I mean, I don't think the Yankees are at the position where they can sit and wait. If they had, I forgot who said this. It was, I don't know if it was on MLB radio or somebody wrote about it, but they said, he would be the perfect player for a team that has a third baseman, has a second baseman, and is looking for that utility bat because they don't need him, right? The Yankees need him, and that's why I said even though if they get a player, it's going to be a plug-in player that they don't have, have to see if that player is coming off an injury or not.
Yeah, and again, I'm happy that we have Oswaldo Cabrera, but as a fill-in, but at the same time, while the American League as a whole, overall might be weaker, the Red Sox are better.
Yeah, they are better.
The teams that pose a threat to the Yankees are better, and that's something that I keep in mind. I think about all the time.
I think that the Sox. I think the Red Sox are definitely a second or third place team. The Orioles. I mean, what happened to them? The O's. I mean, and then the Jays over here getting Santander. And then you have the Rays who are always pesky. I mean, they're going to be they're going to have a chip in their shoulders playing in Steinbrenner Field, right?
Yes, they will.
So yeah, I mean, I do not expect the AL East to be necessarily easy, but what I do think the Yankees have that the other teams do not have, as long as if their pitching is healthy. And like I said, I would not be surprised if you see a trade for, another arm, that is, somebody that they could, either stash in the pen, like Cody Petit, like last year, right? They got him, stashed him in the minor leagues. He made like 7 to 8 starts. You're not asking them to be an elite pitcher. You're asking them to, in case somebody gets hurt, make 4 or 5 starts. Do they go to Will Warren or Chase Hampton? The early indication is Chase Hampton is healthy and he's looking really good. So that could be a person that's a really fast mover. But the Yankees, between their bullpen, which I still think they're going to get help, they're fine as long as if like I say this all the time, if the health is there, they're in the position to win. And last year, you look back at last year, they were relatively healthy. If I recall, the year before that, they had, I believe, 2,300 days on the injury list. Yeah. Last year, I remember making that tweet. If they cut that number in half, they win the division. And they cut the number in half and they won the division. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if they keep those numbers of relative health, they should be okay. You know what I mean? That's what's been stopping them in 23. That's what was the real thing. 2,300 days on the DL. That's a
lot of time.
A lot of time.
It's a lot of time on the shelf there, man. It's just unfortunate, but it's true. It's true. Yankees stay healthy. I trust in Matt Blake to keep the bullpen strong. I trust him to keep the rotation strong. So, and thankfully we have some depth now that's finally kind of emerging from the farm. Hampton, Warren, at least that can give us some type of credible protection. But I agree with you. I could see him making a trade for somebody that we're not thinking of that can be a spot starter or a long reliever.
And you got to keep this in mind, and why I say, unlike other years where I have hammered Cashman, I think their 40-man is either at 36 or 37.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're making a trade, and I'm going to just say hypothetically for Arenado, you're probably trading 2, maybe 3 guys off that. Right. So you're low and you're bringing back maybe 2 guys. So that number is going to stay around 36, 37. That you are going to, when I'm talking about reading the market, you're going to find that Cashman is going to see around the league a lot of teams who are coming down to crunch time and needing to trade players due to guys who are out of options. And right, we're talking about the Dodgers just now, right? Mm-hmm. And how they need it. It's going to really hit the fan come March. So having two open rosters, say they make their moves and they get a third baseman and they get a relief pitcher and they're still at like 2, 3 openings. Wow. I mean, the things you're going to be seeing.
Spring training.
Yeah. You're going to see maybe a Grisham being traded and money being on just to pick up some younger players, because right now, they're at 3. They're like really at 303, and there's only 2 players they can really trade, and that's Strowman and Grisham. Mm-hmm. And if the 2 of them right now, their total salaries combined are $23.5 million. They're not going to have that. That $23.5 million is not going to be picked up. There's more likelihood it's going to be a
15.
third. Yeah, exactly. 14, 15, right? Which is, that takes you down to like 286, 87. That you could bring in somebody at $10, $12 million and bring in a lefty, and then maybe have some space available on the 40-man to snatch players from other teams that when that time comes. I think he's putting him in a very good position this year, and I'm super excited to see what opening day looks like, the 40-man.
Yeah, and to your point too, this also making moves like this also gives Cashman flexibility to be active at the deadline later on.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
he likes to have flexibility at the deadline.
yeah, I mean, there's some talk about, well, this year's deadline, if they make trades, it's going to be like 2021, where he traded prospects for money for salary relief. Yeah, we could see that. I mean, I think this last year's draft class, and I do a lot of draft research and stuff. It was very, very heavy pitching. So there's going to be arms they're going to have to move because of last year. Like last year's class is going to be moving up. So you're going to see some little moves where you're going to see it in a date March. Well, so-and-so got traded to say, I don't know, to the Pirates. And the Pirates gave us a kid in Dominican Summer League, right? And all that stuff. Well, you got to give that kid a couple of years because see where they're growing. But what the point is the Yankees have the ability to get now these little gems that their scouts see everywhere because you have an onslaught of pitching that is needed to put up there. I am super excited to see where the season starts in terms of last year's draft because I think last year's draft class was pretty darn good.
Pretty strong college pitching class.
Yeah.
And has to Bryce Cunningham, like Vanderbilt product. Like you got some big arms came out of last year's class. So I think those guys could move up through the system kind of in a Chase Hampton manner.
Yeah.
That. So and yeah, it's been a while since they've drafted arms like that big. So they're well set. And generally Yankees will trade arms for bats or bats for arms. So, but they've got more. It looks like they have more arms to trade right now from the college level.
Yeah, I mean, if you look on their top 30 list and stuff, a lot of, I think the top first 6 picks are on the board in both Pipeline and Baseball America. And to be honest, like I said, you can't. Well, that's saying, well, the Yankees system is pretty weak. No, that means what they did, they drafted pretty good. The Yankee system is very young. That's the difference. So when you're saying, when they do baseball rankings, if you want a top 10 system, you need players at double and triple A that are ready. Yankees, a lot of their players are in the summer leagues, rookie ball, or low A, and you got to give them time to grow. But the scouts that, that's why I like Fangraphs because they really know their scouting. So I still think the Yankees are listed in near the top 10 based on potential. And you have those young players, like George Lombard, that might not make top 100 list or might make 10 top 10, but every team wants in a trade.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point too, I mean, the trade that they made last week for Michael Abreu from the Cubs.
Yeah.
For a top 5 farm. Top 5.
Yeah.
Abreu was their number 18. He's our 29.
Yeah.
It just goes to testament to show the strength of the system is a little bit stronger than people think when people are coming saying because one chart's had him at the 29 system. Keep in mind, when guys get promoted to the majors, the system takes a hit in rankings, right? Where they're at, the system takes a hit in rankings. So it's very volatile. It fluctuates up and down, these system rankings. But with that was a telling sign for me. When he went from 18 to 29 in our system, it just showed the strength of our system is a little bit deeper than people think it might be.
And it wasn't because the systems weren't ranked, because there's been prospects traded from other teams that have made other teams top 5, right? So it was a legit placement of where they feel he belongs. Hence, example, is it Dela Cruz? Maybe it's Cruz. I forgot his name. The kid they got for the catcher from Boston. He slotted it. What's that?
Elmer Dela Cruz?
Yes, yeah. He slotted in number 12. He could have been put in 20. He came in our system at number 12. So when you got a backup, well, not even a backup catcher, you got a AAA catcher for a top 12 prospect, and you got a DFA kid who was 18 in the Cubs system, which pretty strong system, comes in our system as 29. Cashman is stocking up arms. What's it for? is it for depth or for whatever? But when you have them, you have that process where you could trade stuff away for, either younger kids that you don't have to put on any roster for 5 years, or you trade him for a quality player. But he's in a very good spot. Better than in a lot of the past few years. I'll say that.
Yeah, and the guys that he's brought in recently, none of these guys' time service clocks have started yet.
Yeah.
So at the minimum 6 years of pre-arb and arb. So he's getting when we go back to controllable years, Cashman's very good at acquiring guys with controllable years. Like Efros had 5 when he came here.
Yeah.
Ian Hamilton had 5 when he came here.
Well, they have Leiter, they have Hamilton, they just got Cruz, they have Efros, right? Peter and stuff. There's no doubt in my mind that and teams are looking for bullpen help. They could trade a Hamilton, they could trade a Leiter. I mean, I think it's one of those two they got moved. They have that ability to make that, and maybe they're high on Warren going into the pen, or like I just mentioned, Clayton Beater.
Yeah.
Just because they had shitty experiences last year doesn't mean they're going to have the same experiences this year.
Exactly.
They're working off in the winter, they're gaining the experience and stuff. So, and I still think this is just me. And what's his name's coming back? Johnny Loizaga is coming back. So yeah, they have more. I think he's coming back. I think they said maybe May or late May, whatever. I still think they get 2 lefty pitchers for the pen.
I think so too. Which makes me believe that Canley's not coming back.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they need him to come back because we have Fernando Cruz.
I can see him going to the Mets.
I can see him going to the Mets too because they need to add arms to Mets.
Yeah.
So I think Fernando Cruz made Canley expendable. I could see Hill coming back as one of the lefties, but
yes, I agree.
Chafin, Tenardi, could be any one of these guys. Yeah. The other lefty.
Yeah, I could see if they go with Arenado, King, and Hill, or if they go to the Twins have a few over there. Or making a trade with the Dodgers, like you just mentioned just now, with the running over there. But I think Hill is back. I think the whole thing with Hill is, I think from the Hill, I've heard from some scouts is Hill is asking for 2 years and probably in the 5-6 range, and they want to give him 1 year, probably, $2 million. Yeah. And, it comes to who's going to blink first. Does he really, want to come back here? Because obviously listen, if other teams were offering you 2 years, you probably take it, right? The fact is that he's still on the market leads me to believe everything is a 1-year deal.
Yep.
And maybe you get 1 year in an option, and you pick up from that. But I would be kind of shocked if he's not back. I think they really like him, so I think he comes back, and then they get the other lefty arm. So, the pen is pretty good, and then they're going to have some depth at AAA.
Yeah, I mean, I do think 2 lefties are going to come here, but if they're not, as long as the righties can get guys out. Ken from the channel he always he emphasizes that point because I agree. You could have all righties, but I do think a lefty throws a different dynamic. Yeah. But they've got to be able to get guys out most importantly.
Yeah.
So, and I do think Hill was pretty solid when he came here out of the dumpster, what people call dumpster, right? I don't like that.
But he's exactly what Matt Blake wants. They want sinker, sinker, slider, ground ball pitchers, right? So he if he was put in the right position, which he was here, you're gonna flourish. That's why you get sometimes these players who are crap on other teams go to a team and they flourish because they're put in the position that they're they could strive and thrive, and he is there. So looking what that still needs to be done with the roster. I still think it's going to be a third baseman. I think they find a backup catcher. I think they might flip-flop Grissom for another outfielder, and then finally 2 lefty relief pitchers. And Cashman has the chips. Cashman has the 40-man space.
Yep.
You know, if he's not, listen, if it's the 25th of November of March, and he's not spending anything because of money, then that's not really him. That's on Hal. But I don't really think that's the reason. I think he knows that he can get better prices in possibly 2 weeks to 2 months.
Yeah. And again, whether you strike in a trade or strike in free agency, he's still going to strike. So,
Yeah.
And he knows that he has to strike. He knows that these things have to be filled in order to have a more complete team, right? He knows this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's still 3 weeks left. So I implore folks, like, just please be patient on this. Like I don't worry about Brian Cash when it comes to this type of stuff. I just like Matt Blake when it comes to bullpen.
And you will agree. You would agree with this. I think there are years, and I don't want to use the word, but I will use the word half-assed, where he reads the league and knows that it's going to be a difficult uphill climb. Yeah. And then there are years where he reads the league and he knows strike when the iron is hot. Mm-hmm. And I think right now, coming off a World Series appearance, seeing how the rest of the AL hasn't really approved. I mean, yes, the Red Sox have, but to the point where there are teams adding here, and here. I mean, you know, he knows that this year's strike when the iron is hot, and he always mentions that throughout the years. You know, this is the year to do it. So, and I think, like, you know, you look back at it, I remember him saying that in 2020, right? Remember, then COVID came, and then everything just became whacked.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think this is one of those years that if everybody's healthy, and that's the other thing we don't know, right? And if there's any injuries over the offseason, we're not privy to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And again, like, as much as I like to rely, or not to rely, but I like when Jack Curry puts out something, or Jeff.
Yeah.
There's one person that knows more than those guys, and that's Brian Cashman. He knows more than these guys do.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to know more than these guys do. So that's why I you know, Cashman's word is more gospel to me than anybody else's. Once he says something, but when he doesn't say something, I tend to think he's working on stuff, because he very rarely leaks anything ever. So, and I think he does that intentionally. So,
well, I mean, I think you know, he's going to set himself up to some questions. You would think, you know, in 3 weeks, and I said that, you know, if he doesn't make some moves, you know, and I said this to my friends who are beat writers, you know, are we still the Mecca of baseball? Are we still the evil empire? Is it time to retire? That's not an unfair question, because right. I mean, my only fear, and I other years I have been worried, I'll say that, is that they do 90%, 80%, and then they half-ass the last 20% or so. I don't have that necessary feeling, because I don't think there's much to do, and there's a lot of opportunity to get that. That's the difference.
The market is presenting itself, and more options are coming about. And I have no problem with guys like Fernando Cruz and like some of these other guys who could be valuable weapons in the bullpen.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, and this is the difference, mate, George, when it comes to owners, he led with an iron fist. Hal speaks quietly, but sometimes he packs a big punch. Cashman is the guy that absorbs all the hits for Hal.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is. So again, I'm confident with this. They've been very strategic this offseason. They got better in a lot of different areas. It wasn't one single player who was going to replace Juan Soto. They know that. So they replaced him with 7 guys.
I don't think people want to hear we were better off than that. I think what people have to understand when these commentators saying the Yankees are it's in a sense there's more flexibility. Yeah. That's all it is.
We're a different team.
You're a different team. It's more flexibility, and any general manager and those are the people who do, you know, the general managers, or like a guy like Jeff Passan, who's tremendously respected, says, you know, if you gave them truth serum, Cashman said he'd rather not. Of course, because he has the flexibility now to make moves after moves instead of having an albatross contract.
Yep.
Now, yes, that albatross contract is a great player. I'm not saying he isn't. But when it ties you up from doing other moves, that's a problem.
Just like trading for somebody like Correa would or Tatis would, it would hamstring their ability to make other moves for multiple years. So no matter how much money they had coming off the next couple of years, it doesn't matter. Those are the guys we don't want. I mean, if Correa had just 4 years left, I would consider it. But he's got 4 option years beyond those 4 years in his contract that nobody's talking about. And they're vesting options. And they're doable vesting options.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see anything longer because this is. I remember what was it in 2017, 16? Cashman kept on preaching, having the freedom of having A-Rod off the books, having Sabathia off the books, having Teixeira off the books. Mm-hmm. He does not want to have multiple players where when their glory years get to the end, they're dead weight contracts.
Yep.
I don't think he expected DJ LeMahieu to go into this nosedive. But besides, that, I mean, the 2 contracts I've heard him is that in Hicks. Let's be honest. I mean, the Strowman one was a 2-year deal. It's not even a long term. It's just dumping him now. But
but in hindsight too, the DJ contract and the Hicks contract when they were signed, they were considered bargains.
Yeah. So that's right.
They turned into an albatross.
Right.
He can't predict that.
Right. And that's why right now, I think he's got, he made 3 trades. Like I said this the other night, he's traded these players, hasn't traded a top 15 guy, traded Cody Petit for Bellinger, Nestor Cortez. Nestor Cortez's arm could fall off. I mean, I'm being serious. And you got a top 3 closer in the game. Yeah.
Pretty what I mean?
Right. I mean, you got Goldschmidt. I'm not the big listen. I did not want Goldschmidt. I'll make myself clear. I wanted, Nathaniel Lowe or I was even considering Orlando. I was considering Santander. I did not want Goldschmidt, but I think the reason why he's looking at Goldschmidt is even if Goldschmidt stinks, Goldschmidt's still going to be putting up, 20 home runs, 70 RBIs, and Gold Glove. Right, exactly.
And he's going to make he's going to make the infielders around him look better.
Exactly.
And that's a
and he's going to be a voice in the clubhouse to listen to.
Well, and another thing too, and I this is something I think of. If Ball called Goldschmidt on a 1-year deal, now does it open it up for them Munetake Murakami pursuit next year? Maybe, but if Spencer Jones takes the next step in his development, okay, and you still have Cody Bellinger here, there is a chance that Spencer Jones can go to first base. He's a super athlete, but
I would think Bellinger.
Yeah, if you want to get Jones and Dominguez in the lineup at the same time, that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, I think I've been saying this. I think if Bellinger has a great year, he's going to move to first, and if Jones breaks out, Jones is probably going to go to second. Jones is an elite athlete that
I would be fine with that. And again, I would rather Spencer Jones break out than spend $500 million on Kyle Tucker.
Yeah. I mean, you that might actually happen. Let's see how. Let's see what Jones. If Jones
$500 million, I think him and Guerrero are going to get $500 million. I'm not saying that's what they're worth. That's what they're going to cost.
Yeah, Jones. If Jones breaks out, it's going to put you in a position where you have more flexibility of what your future is going to be.
Yeah. That's why I'm so high on Jones, because he has the same skill set as Kyle Tucker.
I've said it. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. If you look at Kyle Tucker, I think Kyle Tucker was 24, 25 when he really broke out. Jones is 23 now. He turns 24 in May. Okay. Give him this year. I mean, there's a possibility he goes in spring training and lights up everything. And this is the thing that, I didn't tweet this yet, but I will soon. There's a possibility May the 7th, Stanton pulls a muscle, and we're gonna see Jones, right?
And this guy's got mantle power. He's got
You know, I think they're looking at the 200 strikeouts and really getting hung up. And if you look at, and some of the scouts are that way, but then there's I mean, Ryan Garcia is a good guy, writes some good stuff. Had a great breakdown. If you look at the last 2 months of Spencer Jones, which I was watching a lot of those games, those playoff games, he was a different kind of player.
His K rate cut down. He made some adjustments in his grip and his posture. He's changed his loading phase this offseason.
Yeah.
And again, Aaron Judge had the same problem when he came here. He struck out 200 times. He also hit 50 home runs.
Yeah.
If you put that much power, they're not going to care if you get 200 strikeouts. But Aaron Judge has gone from 200 Ks to like 60% of that.
No, I mean, honestly, Judge is a unique thing. I'm looking just at numbers, comparing him to Kyle Schwarber, right? Schwarber's numbers, he walks more. Yes, I get it, but Jones plays the field could be at elite level. So there's different ways. So if Jones is putting up 170, 180 Ks a year, but is hitting 30 home runs and stealing 30 bases,
playing elite defense,
anybody in baseball is going to want that.
Yeah, and this guy's got Aaron Judge power, and he's like Ellie De La Cruz in the outfield.
Yeah.
He's got
even what's his name? The kid from the Pirates, O'Neill. Is it O'Neill? Yeah, same kind of.
6'8" shortstop. Like what the?
Yeah, so I mean, you just got to give. The thing is that people want answers now. You know what I mean, and you got to give the kid time because as much as I love Dominguez, right? Dominguez might flop out, and it might be Jones who's the one who takes his place.
And this is Dominguez's 6th year in the system. This is Jones' 3rd.
Yeah, well, this is also Jones' I believe third or 4th year of playing the field, because in high school he was a pitcher. Yeah, he had Tommy John surgery. But and that's not to diss Dominguez, because I think Dominguez is going to be fine. I'm not worried about Dominguez. But I'm saying, there's so many different variables that you don't know where injury takes place, where things happen in the course of the year and somebody comes up and stuff. I just don't think you write somebody off because of one glaring thing. Because if you go around baseball, they would gladly take him off your hands. If you don't want Spencer Jones, we'll take him.
Look at Adam Dunn. He struck out like 200 times a year. Batted above 200. He had 400 home runs in his career.
Yeah. I mean, there's some players out there that they're the comps, because if his power tool is probably a 60, his fielding tool is probably a 60, his arm is probably a 60, his running is about a 55, the hit tool is probably 45 maybe. That's not terrible, but there's too many higher graded stuff that you just want to see. And one other thing too, and I think you've seen this too around the game more so now than any time before, is that you're seeing players who are 26, 27, and 28 emerging, right? And you're going to see that. I think, Mike Stacey's just wrote about that because of the lost COVID years, right? You had lost COVID years in development. You're going to see now players who are 26, 27, who are rookies. Not saying that's going to be Jones, because Jones is still 23, right? But you saw that, like Max Muncy came up when he was like 27. Yep. And he was with the A's and stuff. So when you give him that, I'm not saying, there's only one Max. Well, if you look around baseball, and I've noticed this a lot when relief pitchers, I think there are more 29 to 33, 34-year-old relief pitchers who are making debuts at any other time before. Yep. I mean, the kid that got Cruz from the Reds is like 35. Yeah. He came up like 2 or 3 years because you're putting on different spins on the ball. You're learning. Your arm is there.
And he averages 15 Ks per 9. 15.
And you know what? When they start checking birth certificates on the mound or at the plate, that's when I start worrying. And to that point, I don't really care. You know what I mean? When the player declines, and if the player's still going, he is still going. So, like I said, rest assured, I think, the Yankees develop. And here's one other point, and we've been reading about this. There's going to be somewhere between 10 to 15 to possibly 20 new coaches in the Yankee system this year.
Yep.
So when they start putting their influence in there, I think I think Cashman knows there's a lot of talent there, and this is the opportunity to address that. So we'll see what happens. I'm really excited to see what the minors do. I just started to look at usually start looking for the draft preview, and I just started to touch it, and it still bothers me. Like, I see the Dodgers they got themselves a comp pick. The Rays got a comp pick. You mentioned it before. The Orioles have 3 picks in the top 35.
Yep. In the first round.
Yeah. So, and this year's it's a lot of arms, a lot of good arms, a lot of lefty arms. Mm-hmm. Bats are okay, but between now and June, that's a different story. But early indication, it's going to be a good draft. So, I think that's why when they signed Free, they lost their second round pick. They still have 4 picks in the top 5 rounds. I pray every night. One of my things is get another comp pick, right? So if they can get another comp,
maybe you can flip Grisham for a comp pick. Like,
I was thinking, it's funny that you said that, because I was thinking it would not surprise me, and I'm just like throwing it out there. You mentioned the Marlins. Here are 2 possible locations, I think, for Strowman: the Marlins and the Pirates. Mm-hmm. And if the Yankees eat $5-6 million, they both have comp picks. So you could trade Strowman for a comp pick, or you could trade Strowman and you could put in a Peraza or a Gomez as another player, right? And get a comp pick.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me, because like you mentioned before, but the Pirates they're okay, but the Marlins need to defend. And I think they have like the 42nd, 43rd pick. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I would take that. I would take that. You move Strowman and you add a prospect to get a comp pick.
Yeah, you're paying.
That's a good trade. That's a good trade, because you're not going to get a stud for Strowman.
No, you're not going to get anything for Strowman. But if you could buy a comp pick, I know the Royals. I'm looking at the draft order, and the teams that I'm watching, like the Royals, they trade their picks usually.
Yeah.
The Cardinals have one, the Pirates have one, the Rockies have one, and the Marlins have one. If they could get something with one of those 5 teams, just to get that, that extra pick, so they'll have 5 picks, and they'll have 20 out of 20 picks. That would be terrific.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. They can continue to complement international signings with the draft. Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing. They were talking about the international signings and why they haven't signed. They're going to sign. It's just a lot of minutia. Let's use that word, right? And when coming off, because they're still evaluating players that either Dodgers or other teams, were looking to get, and they either sold away. For an example, who traded away the Guardians.
The Guardians did, and the Reds traded some to the Dodgers, and then being traded to maybe the Phillies. Somebody traded more to the Dodgers.
Right. So you have a couple of teams, and it may be not that top player. It may be that player that's $30,000-$40,000.
It's okay.
That you would want. So just give it some time. I think it's going to work itself out.
Yeah, they'll have. They've signed 6 guys already internationally.
Yeah.
One of them was like a number 11. It's a 5-toolsy guy. Okay. But there's still a lot more. If you look at the top 50, I pointed this out too, like you had Roki Sasaki at 1, and then you had to go down to 39 for the next pitcher.
Yeah.
39.
Yeah. So, it's all these bats, and then those bats, and that's what I say, it's like taking, like a dart and just throw, because you don't know, where it's going to go. And if it hits bullseye, you're lucky. If it hits the side of a barn, it is. I've witnessed too many times. What I am very impressed, though, is the Yankees finding those lower end $20,000 player, that $30,000 player. If you just develop them, that player could get traded for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, they're either make it up here or they become valuable trade assets. That's why it's so important to develop them no matter what.
That's where I think people don't understand how true to, like, well, how come all these draft players are not in the big leagues? Well, those drafted players over the past 5 years have been traded away for players that are in the big leagues.
Yeah, like 30 of them.
Yeah. So,
and there's a reason the Yankees get gutted in the Rule 5 draft every year too.
Yeah.
Every year the Yankees lose a lot of guys in Rule 5 draft. They have a lot of good developing players that teams want.
I mean, who was it? Spencer, right? Spence, who was at with the A's. I mean, like, he had a very, very solid year. He was never going to get a shot. That's why if you look around baseball, a lot of teams will say the Yankee system. This is what teams will do. I've heard this from scouts. The Yankee system sucks. Oh, by the way, can we get this person, and this person?
Yep.
But they suck. But we want this person, this person, this person. They know exactly what they're doing.
They want an awful lot of guys that are not in the top 100.
Yeah, and they know where they are in the system, because if you're a good scout, you might find somebody in the Yankee system. I'm trying to go off the top of my head. I think that there's a relief pitcher, maybe Double-A, that was throwing some gas. Not Riles, meant somebody else. But
like that, or
I forgot. But yeah, that one looks good, and we could take that player and stuff like this. So there is some value there. You gotta dig deep. You gotta brush off everything and really look what's really down there.
Not every move has to be sexy.
Yeah, exactly.
Not every move has to be sexy. And so, and this is the importance of it. And again, so folks, I hope you Jordan. I can't thank you enough for coming on, because really talking about stuff like this, but giving folks hopefully a greater understanding of the mathematical and financial operations around the Yankees, and it hopefully gives you insight into how they operate and why they operate in this manner, right?
Yeah.
It's really important to have at least a basic understanding of that. And this is why I stress facts over talking points so often on the channel. This is why, and people call me cryberry. I'm not a cryberry. I'm passionately defending my team.
Right. No, I think one lot, before we go and everything, the thing is that anything that you want to, it's easy to research.
Yeah.
Like, you could find articles, you could find, stuff that Forbes, Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, I put it out there. There's plenty of sources out there will tell you, that people don't realize they have loans out for the stadium. They have loans out for the Yes Network.
Check this out, gang. Watch this. Count to 10. All right? Just count to 10. Okay, watch this. Oh, shit. Where did I go? There we go. Hang on. Count to 10 again. Sorry. I'm going to put something on the screen. I just found this, okay? Let's put this up here. Yankees look. All right. Is it up on the screen? Let's share it. Now, let's get this off the screen here. Yankees look to find. Let's close this. Close this window. Why is there so many windows here? Okay. My God. Hang on. Yankees are looking to finance. I'm trying to figure out why there's so many windows that are closing me here. But this is something that talks about the Yankees. Oh, here we go. Financing. Oh, wait, what is this? This is not it. Hang on, gang. What in the world's going on here? Hang on. My apologies, gang. Let's go to something else here. Hold on. Something's not coming up here. 1 second, gang. Stay with me, because while we were talking about this, I just pulled something up here. And again, Yankees look to refinance. Hang on. Stay with me here. I have it here, but it's like, to Bobby's point, the value of researching, right? Fact-checking stuff. Check this out. I'm going to put this up on the screen if it would cooperate with me here. Here we go. Can you see this? Yankees look to refinance $1 billion debt from new stadium. And this was 2016.
Yeah.
Okay. But this gives you a little bit of insight into how quickly you could find stuff. Yankees team owner Hal Steinbrenner is making new pitch to return the team to profitability. Look at that line, to return the team to profitability. Okay. Just goes to show they're not swimming in money like a lot of folks think they are. Okay, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to attach this article down below. Let me get it off the screen because it's obviously causing havoc here. But I'm going to attach this article down below, like I always do. Anytime I find something, I attach down below, right? So you can read for yourself. And I think it's important to do that. I'm going to attach this, and I'm going to talk about another. I'm going to attach another article. It talks about we're talking about George Steinbrenner and the shipbuilding business and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to attach an article about that as well, so you have an understanding of how George operated versus how they operate now. Okay, and these I think are very important articles to read, and just to get a little bit better understanding. And maybe it'll give you a little bit of a more clarity in terms of what Bobby and I are thinking about, what Bobby and I are talking about, because we're looking at this from a little bit of a different scale, right? And again, we're I don't want, we can call us nerds, whatever you want to call us, but like I like to know as much as I possibly can and share it with you because it enhances the discussion. It elevates the content for everybody, right? And again, if we're going to formulate opinions and judgments, I'd like to do it on good information and not bad information. So at least we can come up with,
Well,
go ahead.
I would say this is, anybody who uses any kind of common sense, right? Let's just use easy numbers. If the Yankees made $700 million in revenue and their CBT plus payroll is $350, that means there's $350 million left. If you think that all that $350 million just goes straight into the Steinbrenners and the investors' pockets, you're absolutely freaking nuts. It's not even close.
We haven't included revenue yet.
There's no revenue sharing. There's no debt on the stadium. There's no debt on buying the yes. Who's paying for the scouts? Who's paying for those Dominican academies? Who's paying for the Tampa spring training facilities? Who's paying for operations? Do you know how many people go Google Yankees phone book and see how many people there are on there? What do you think? They work for free?
Yeah.
You think those analytic people work for free? They got like 20, 30 analytic people. These are people from Harvard and Yale and Columbia. You think they're working for free?
MIT. Yeah.
Yes. They're getting well over six figures.
Yep.
So that 350 after that might be
50.
Might be 50. Yeah, 50. Okay. So if they do use that money for their pockets, then that money is split between the 60% the Steinbrenner family owns and the 40% the other investors own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I would think which Hal has brought up in the COVID year. The COVID year, they lost well over $100 million, if not more.
Yep.
So that money, I'm pretty sure, goes back in there. But to say that, okay, but here's the other thing. So let's hear me out. So just say you do not want the Yankees or their investments, the Steinbrenners, to make $1. You're going to reinvest it. The reinvestment is only going to be $40-50 million. Like, I don't see where we still compete where the Dodgers are. You know what I'm saying? So I can't fault them for making money. I'm the most liberal person in the world, but I'm also a capitalist. Okay, you know what I mean? So if they want to make their money and split it amongst themselves, that's great. But they're still putting back plenty of the money back in the team, and that's based on what's helping the Yankees maintain their payroll is their revenue. Let's just call that's because if they were making revenues as the Reds, or even with the Mets are not making that revenue, or the Red Sox are not making that revenue, Baltimore isn't, the Jays aren't. What helps the Yankees is the fan base, is having the 81 game near sellouts, is having Yes Network. They're buying back Yes, and that's the other thing too. When we make fun of them for getting AC Milone, the New York Yankees own a piece of the Yes Network with Amazon, I believe, and a few other investments. I've got is a Merrill Lynch or one of those broker houses, right? So buying 10%, which was like I think $100 million. Why? It's content. They need content to put on their TV channel. So they have them on there. They have the Brooklyn Nets paying into them, right? Brooklyn Nets are on that channel. They need content. So the Yankees want to own a bigger share of that. So they got to pay for it. So the $50,000 that they use to pay for it is going to bring, in the long term, more revenue in there. One thing that I am curious to know, and I do not know the answer, is how long before the stadium gets paid off, because that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because then you're talking a nice chunk. You're talking about $80 to $100 million of money that is now
freed.
Free, exactly. I try to research. I don't know when they started to pay. Like you just wrote about that. They refinanced in 16. I think they refinanced again in 20 or 21.
Yep.
The stadium opened in 19. They started digging, I think, at the stadium in 04 or 05. So they could be at the 20-year mark. Now, did they restart it again? Like if you refinance your house, you restart the mortgage again. I don't know. That I do not know how much longer they have left. But that would be that. If I had to have any question, I want to know is how much longer they have to pay for the stadium.
Yeah, and this is one reason why you might see a star insurance patch on their jersey, right? An extra $25 million. Does that go towards paying down the stadium? It could be. It could be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it gets put in the pot. I think the calculations we're going to see this year with the coming off last year with the playoff games, they're probably in the 725, 750 realm. With star insurance, the playoff games, they're probably on that kind of range. So why I'm asking, the reporters to tell, how are we going to be they should be at 320. They could, if 320 means they're at a 390 total with the tax, because I think the tax is around 68.
Yep.
68. Yeah. So it's about 380, 390 total. They should be at that number. They should be at the number, unless, like you said, they get some deals done on reduced money. And, and here's the one other thing we got to keep in mind. What is in anybody who has a job, especially a finance job, you're going to get those like quote unquote weasels that save money for the company. They get rewarded. You want to call Brian Cashman a weasel, you can call him a weasel way up you want. If he saves, Hal, $15 to $30 million, you can get rewarded for that.
Mm-hmm. That's part of his job too, to make these guys money.
Thank you.
So, and that's part of it's not only getting the better team. Again, and the fact of the matter is he's been the most successful GM in the sport for almost 3 decades now. He's got 5 rings to his credit as GM. 5.
People don't want to hear it, but he's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day.
Yeah, even Billy Beane said this. Billy Beane said he's the greatest GM in all sports. Billy Beane. Now we're not saying that. Billy Beane, the guy that they made a movie about, Moneyball, said that about Brian Cashman. Okay, you have fellow GMs echoing these sentiments.
You could have we have witnessed with the Mets all these years, high payrolls, losing.
Yeah.
He's got 30 years. He's going to have close to 30 years this year of, or 30 plus years of over 500. You would figure one of those years, things just go really wrong, and you get 78, 80 wins, and you break that streak. To have that, it echoes what Billy Beane is saying.
Yeah. The consistent product that he puts forth. And again, we're going back to what we said. He's not going to have a flashy offseason every year.
No.
He doesn't have to. So when he does, he does. Like in 2009, he did, right? This year was a different offseason. It was a more methodical offseason, but, it is what it is. But the guys, am I pissed off that they have Aaron Judge here? No. I love that they have Garrett Cole here. I love that they have Stanton here. I love the piece that they have here. And it's I just love the team.
I think we're gonna have I think when it's all said and done, and I'm gonna, I've told a few of my friends, I am not losing my mind until I see what the roster is March 30th. And at that point, if things are the same, then I'm gonna say things were uncalled for, and you're doing the 90, you're doing the 80% and the 90% and half-ass and the rest. I don't think it's going to be that way. I hope it's not that way.
I do think there'll be moves made before spring training and during spring training.
But you just got to use common sense. Teams are looking to dump. Yankees have roster space. Add the two together. Just give some time.
And I understand the argument like Dodgers said. The Dodgers have very little dead money on their roster. I get it. And the Yankees will have less dead money on their roster after this year, after next year, and so on. So they're approaching that level too.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, they are the best team in the American League until proven otherwise. So, and the next step is to win the World Series. And
that's a conversation for early October. Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to that point. We'll cross that bridge when it comes. Got to get there first.
Yes, absolutely.
The Dodgers have to get there first too.
Yes, that's right. You don't know how their season is going to go with injuries and stuff like. You just don't know.
Two of the 5 guys are coming off Tommy John in that rotation.
Exactly. That's why I always say, and I will say this in April. I'm not going to lose my mind on an April game when it's clear. It is clear. We saw it last year. They're playing for the last 2 months of the season. They're playing for August and September. They're not going to blow out an arm. They're not going to blow out a hamstring for a game. And I know the April games count as much as the September games, but they as an organization have shown time and time again they're going to wait until the deadline and then go balls to the wall 60-game stretch. Like they're telling you the plan. If you don't want to accept it, that's on you.
Yeah, and I'm not leaving. I'll leave you guys with this. 2 things I say on a regular basis. One, the spending guarantees nothing for anybody.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is do not rule the Yankees out.
Yeah.
Don't rule them out. Yeah. People ruled them out last year. They got to the World Series. So
absolutely. And there was a lot of people in August saying how this team is just you have to that's what I say when as much as you love Cashman, you hate Cashman.
Yeah.
He's well respected, and like I said, he knows the market, he knows the timeline, he knows how to navigate his way through a season.
Mm-hmm. And to this point too, he'll figure out whether the best move is going to be a second baseman or a third baseman.
Yeah.
If they have to move Jazz to second, they're going to have a really good third baseman. If they have to move Jazz to third, they're going to have a really good second baseman.
Yeah.
He knows exactly how to read this market. He'll get the right piece. You just have to be patient.
Right. And that's the thing too. I mean, if things don't, you're going to see, it wouldn't surprise me. Say Arenado goes to the Angels. Great. That's fine. But I know there's other moves that could be possibly be made. So what I don't want to see is that, they got Brandon Rogers and they're going to sell me Brandon Rogers is the answer in, at $2.5 million when I know it's not. That's when I get a little like, don't insult my intelligence. But until they do that, I'm not going to,
Exactly. And I think
jump off the boat.
I think they know they're going to have a hard time selling Brandon Rogers or Paul DeJong or Polanco. They're going to have a really hard time selling fans on either one of these guys. Just like they have a really hard time selling fans on DJ, Peraza, and Oswaldo Cabrera. All due respect to them, none of these guys, I think, are going to be the starters when the season starts.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, you hit it 100%. And I think that they're not, they understand what they could read their market and they could see what the fans are saying. I mean, but they all could see their roster too. So, I'm
just gonna be patient. Just hang in there. We got a couple more weeks until pitchers and catchers, and then things happen during spring training too.
We have what 1, 2, 3 and 3.5 weeks. Yeah.
So
3.5 weeks pretty much.
And we'll keep you updated on everything, gang. And if you're not following Bobby on X, please do. Get some of the most valuable insights from Bobby. And I can't thank you enough for coming on too, gang. And everybody who had, please hit the like button. Okay, just for this conversation we had today. This is so valuable. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. It was a pleasure being on here and talking to Jason and just talking some smart baseball. You know what I mean? Do the research. I mean, I like I said, that's the teacher in me, and and connect dots. I mean, if you could do that,
it's the NBA in me. It's just our thought process is a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, these GMs are no different than us.
Yeah. They just have a different job.
Yeah,
That's okay.
that's right. Thank you so much for having me on.
Bobby. Everybody, appreciate you all coming on, spending some time with us. Bobby, have a great time, great week, and happy New Year, by the way. And I hopefully I'll have you on real soon as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Peace,
it's always awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all coming on. Thank you, everybody. So I pray thanks, and again, thanks to Bobby for coming on. Always love his insight. The last move, we don't know yet, Ted. It's a good question. I'm going to wrap this up too. I think they're going to add an infielder, and I think they're going to add 1 or 2 relievers, lefty on the lefty side. We'll see. We'll see. It's just stay tight, keep tight. We'll see. We'll see what they're going to do. But I believe Brian Cashman's going to do the right thing. He's going to continue to read the market, and something's going to fall. Appreciate you, Concierti. Something's going to fall into their laps that we may not even be thinking about. Obviously, if they can get Brendan Donovan, I would love for them to get Brendan Donovan. But if they don't get Brendan Donovan, I think they're going to have a pretty damn good consolation prize. So either way, they're going to be better. So, but again, exactly. I mean, it's important to understand where the money's come from and where it's going, which is why I like to have guys like Bobby on here to give some clarity into the conversation. Right. That's why I think it's important to do stuff like this instead of just going on Twitter and use other people's talking points. And those people don't even know what they're talking about because they're using other people's talking about who also don't know what they're talking about. So, but it is what it is, NFE, right? Right, brother. But thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. If anybody that's not subscribed, you like stuff like this, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the like buttons as well. And make sure you support NFE. Okay, the strike zone. See him in here. It's a good man right there. He's one of them. He's one of the family. He's one of the family. So peace and love to all of you. Have a great day. Over now.